Anthony is CEO and Director of the Australian Country Choice Group. Australian Country Choice is the world's largest paddock-to-plate family-owned and operated cattle and beef business. ACC is dedicated to the best practice supply of high-quality meat products to domestic and export markets. And I know Anthony is keen to support, and he's looked at the school sector, which a lot of industry people don't. They go for the upper level, you see. They go for tertiary and they go for vocational. So it's pleasing to see that there's a spotlight on educating early so that our whole sector can benefit. So thanks.
Well, firstly, thanks, Simon. I'd just like to start off by thanking. I haven't been to one of these before, but I hear it's been an absolute success. It sounds like it's bigger than better than it ever has been, which is really encouraging for what I'm about to go on. But can we all just give a round of applause for all the PIEFA team that have put it together? Rightio. So Anthony Lee's my name. I'm CEO at ACC. I'm also a family member. And it just did strike a chord with me what Kari talked about. So I went to school and then uni, did a Bachelor of Business and whatnot. But I started when I was 14 and in the works and abattoir and moving around the place and worked in every part of the business. And as soon as I was comfortable, as soon as I was, sitting and enjoying it, knew my work, they'd move me, and it was just this constant thing of. But I look back on now as the best thing for me because you just never got comfortable. You're always learning, you're always going. And while it's an uncomfortable place to be, you are advancing. So I certainly, that resonated with me. And, what I'd always encourage students or young people that I talk to is just never be too keen to go up. Just go across first. It's such a fantastic thing to learn the supply chain, even if you don't really have a full interest in all of it, to be able to understand it when you are going up the pathway that you choose. It gives you so much more of a breadth than if you hadn't have done that. So I know everyone wants to make more money and get ahead quickly, and that's hard to sort of stop, but to be able to go across is fantastic. Okay, is it not working? Am I pressing the wrong button? That button. There we go. Okay, so ACC, we're a vertically integrated business. So what that means is we control every part of the supply chain, from breeding, backgrounding of growing cattle, feeding cattle, processing them, value-adding them, so cutting the meat up into portions and wrapping it into a retail pack. We distribute to export markets and domestically. What that means is many skill sets needed and expertise in every area. And so, you've got to get that all the time. You've got to be great at every part of the supply chain. It gives you amazing control to be able to understand every sector and be able to do it better. And, our industry is very much, particularly the meat sector, it's processors versus producers, and we hate each other and we bash each other up all the time. And that's just how, unfortunately, it's been. We're a little different because we control the whole sector, so we understand the ups and downs of it, and certainly gives you great data to be able to take back to make your business better. We are just, who mentioned women, we are about 50% women, and I've got to say the women are knocking the lights out. Like the blokes, we need to educate the blokes because they're really, they've got a lot to do. It's amazing to see the change there, and the women coming through. It is brilliant to watch the careers and progression that they've had in our business. So as I said, we are how we do that. So we've got 4.5 million acres of land throughout Queensland. We've got 300,000 head of cattle, 3 feedlots with 60,000 head capacity, and then a processing facility. And you can sort of see that supply chain, how it's working. So the further west you go, that's breeding. That's big scale breeding, growing out calves. Calves are then coming through to those smaller green dots, and that's pasture improvement. That's better productivity. So those weaners are growing through to feeder weight, growing up to be ready for the feedlots, and then you see the feedlots are the yellow dots. So closer, we're coming closer into the city all the time, and then the little blue dot is our processing facility in at Brisbane, and we're surrounded by houses. It's a very urban area, and it's meant that the R&D and the sophistication of our business had to be A1 to stay where we have, and we've survived there for a very long time, and no one really knows we're there. We employ about 1,500 people across that network, and that's growing. We're getting to 2,000 hopefully in the next couple of years with some of the developments we got coming. And I would say too that we take a lot of kids through school. It's a big passion of mine. Get them through and have a look at what we do, whether that be the feedlots, the properties, or the meatworks. I mean, I have a problem that we think that a meatworks should be shut off from people and it's the black art of what we do. The reality is that we eat meat, and Australia has unbelievable standards, whether that be quality, safety, and we should be really proud of it. Yes, we convert live animals into meat, and that's what we do. But every time I take males and females of banks or politicians or whatever through the facility, we end up spending way longer than they think, and they're the ones asking all the questions. So it always, time and time again, I see that actually opening people's eyes to what we do is far better than saying, "Oh no, you can't look in here." And so anyway, that's a bit of what's led me to the next thing. So, and I've done that with my kids. I've lived that, and some people would say, at what age should they be exposed to these things? And you can see on the left-hand side, we spend a fair bit of time. I'm a city kid. I grew up in the city. My father had properties and whatnot, and we used to do a lot of that, but I grew up born and bred in the city, and my kids are city kids. They've grown up in urban Brisbane. But we've exposed them to this side of life, and I see the best out of them, absolute best out of them when they're out there. They're off their iPads, they're into it. They love machinery, they love the animals, they love all the science that's going on. They're super interested in it, and that's sort of and then they'd come home and we'd spend, a month out there or 2 months, and they go to school and they're not hearing about it. They're not being taught about it at school. And my oldest actually said to me, why? In fact, I'm hearing that meat's bad, Dad. That's sort of like the moment where you go, wow, we really, have got this really wrong. So, and the other thing I hear, as I said, is you can't take kids through. They'll never eat meat again. Don't you expose them to that. They'll never go and eat a piece of meat again. Well, have a look at the photo, right? The top one is them looking at it. You can see the age of them, and then that's them coming out. So they don't look like they've had the worst time in the world. Especially the young one. Look at him go. He's a cool little kid. Anyway, so and that's the bush life, right? Like they grow up seeing this stuff. It's only in urban Australia, which is what is it, Scott? 90% of the population, right? 80-90%. That we're not exposed to it, and that's actually obviously a massive part of the population. But all the rural kids, they see it. It's not news to them. They see it from a very young age. So that sort of inspired a bit of a speech I did last year at the Rural Press Club Eka Breckie about this. I used the quote, "Give me the child until he's 7, and I'll show you the man." Man or woman, but that's a quote from Aristotle 2,000 years ago. So, we expect these kids to come through an education system, not really get a lot of education in food and fibre, even though it's in the curriculum, pop out the other side and think that they'll come into our sector. We are missing that whole generation of education where it's so important for these kids to understand what's going on, and they're interested. And there's many examples of where when it's being done well at schools, that they are completely interested in this stuff. So I talked a bit about that. I did learn that there's a heap of good stuff actually going on in the space, which was pleasing. It's just very disorganised. And that's a lot of the industry's issue, and I'll get onto that in a minute. But the reality is we are going backwards. So while there's great stuff being done, the facts are that we are going backwards with our graduates. I got some excellent feedback from it, sort of urged me on to do something a bit more than get up and say half an hour of a few words. And the other thing that I learnt that I wasn't quite aware of is just that it is in the curriculum today. That's half the battle done. Food and fibre is in the curriculum. Most industries would kill to have their industry in the curriculum. We just got to get it taught in every school in Australia. And where it's being done well, it's knocking the lights out. 95% parent satisfaction rating at Barker. So kids are loving it, parents are loving it, and it's something they really enjoy doing. So I took the positive feedback and decided to do something about it. And what I wanted to do was make sure that get onto that one, and make sure that every part of the sector was involved. I'm in the red meat industry, but it's food and fibre, it's not red meat, right? So we had to get everyone involved, and there's 50 RDC and Peak Council representatives that represent our sector. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to ring one CEO of one major food and fibre peak body. It's not there. And that's half the battle, but that's a whole nother conversation for another day, right? So I had to ring fisheries, forestry, red meat, white meat, hort, grains, and get them all together. Pleasingly, when I rang them, everyone was very supportive, which was great. It did take some time to get through, but everyone was very supportive. So we put together a forum that happened 2 Fridays ago in Brizzy on April 21st. And the main thing was just how do we get food and fibre education taught at every school in Australia? For 2 reasons. One, to improve the skill sets coming through, which is obviously a shortage that we have, but equally to increase awareness around the social licences of all the people that aren't coming through our industry. So whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, or anyone that's not coming through into the agricultural sector, it's important that they are aware of the industry and how it's done. So instead of, they can almost become an advocate as opposed to someone that potentially is talking negatively about the industry. And I just wanted to put this up because you have a look at that, right? That is power right there. We are the second biggest industry in Australia. And we can do so much wonderful stuff if that group was united and collaborated. They don't collaborate, they don't unite, they don't come together. And I think, in fact, that was the first time all in a room together. So it's a real miss from the industry's point of view, and we need to do better here. But it was fantastic to get them all together, and there was a lot of positivity in the room, there was a lot of energy in the room, and in 3.5 hours we covered a lot of ground and made some pleasing progress. As I said though, and I want to take, this can do so much more for our industry. So education is the starting point and the platform to spring from. However, how much more can we do if these subsectors unite? So a few of the pledges from the day. So this is sort of leading into the forum. I wanted to make sure we had some actual outcomes. Ooh, I better be quick here. So we firstly agreed we can actually work together on the initiative, which was a pleasing result. We agreed we collectively support our HR department, which is PIEFA. So as a business, you got people development. Well, that's HR's role to work in that space, and then with the peak body. So there was support to align with PIEFA. There was an agreement that we need to build a strategy. Where are we going? What's the plan? We got no plan. It's all over the place. Heaps of people are doing stuff, but there's no overarching strategy. What does great look like? Where are we at today? And what are the issues that we all know about? What's the pathways through it? What are the funding mechanisms needed? We agreed we needed a working group to prepare this strategy. So that we agreed six skill sets, which I'll go through. We agreed we needed a funding mechanism. Very pleasingly, Jason Strong from MLA really took on that challenge. He got up and proposed a prorated funding arrangement between all the RDCs, $800 million or thereabouts to 15 RDCs, 800 million. If we just had 1 or 2% of that, $8 million to $16 million, what more could we do? So they put their support behind it, which was fantastic. And then we agreed some milestones and timelines. So particularly around momentum, it's all good and well to come and say a whole bunch of stuff, but we got to get, this is, in my view, this is never ending, right? This is not a project, this is never ending work. And so we agreed every 6 months that group you saw before would catch up and keep the momentum going. Rightio, I'm just mindful of time here, that what was comprised of the working group was an independent chair, a PIEFA representative, policy/funding expert, education/curriculum expert, a corporate person out of food and fibre, a project manager, and then an RDC representative. And so the nominations will go out. PIEFA will run that with a group that will oversee that with PIEFA. People will be able to put in their application to be part of that working group, and then there'll be a selection process happening. Can I just say, though, with the very limited... Am I right? Rightio, good. Oh, well, I've got another half an hour? No. So with that, what was I going to say? Yeah, so 6 people, right? Not this room's a lot more, 6 people. There's a lot of people that want to be involved. But this is just the working group. What the working group needs to do is not work in isolation. It needs to get out to all the people that want to be heard, that are doing great things in this space. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's being done. We just need to understand and really leverage off all the great stuff that's already happening, put it together in a coherent plan that actually we can roll out for the whole of Australia. Okay, so if you want to get involved, are unable to get involved, make sure you get heard. The idea is for that working group to get out there. It might take 6 months, might take a year to prepare this strategy, and it's going to take a whole lot of input from you all. The funding mechanism, as I said, it was proportional based on the matched levies. That's just for the strategy. That might cost $500,000, $1 million, somewhere in that order, $2 million. Whatever the case, that's actually a very small amount of what this is going to cost to prepare what the roadmap for what it looks like. From there is when the work gets done. From there is, okay, what are we doing year 1, year 2, year 3? What are we doing to actually improve where we are today? At that point, that's really when we can start. Once our industry has a roadmap, a pathway, and all of those peak bodies and RDCs are all behind it, one voice, one strategy, there will be a heap of money come into this space. I think someone touched on it before around corporates and whatnot. I've already had 2 banks, 2 supermarkets, a packaging company come and talk about how they're going to throw money at it. Once we get a plan, I have no doubt we will get the money we need not only from government and industry, but also from the businesses and also all the service businesses that sit around our industry. Anyway, next steps. So there's a letter gone out to the RDCs to make sure we get the funding. We've got to get the working group going, so that's in train. Once this is done, we'll get onto that. We need to absolutely maintain momentum on this, so put together the 6 monthly catch-ups. And that, and as I said, your involvement very much wanted. So, for me, far too important to fail. It's failing, in my view, and I know people are trying hard. It's not good enough because the results are showing that it's not good enough. It's too important to fail. Let's get a plan for how we improve on it. Our kids are worth it, right? What are we saying here? That we're not going to invest in the future of this industry and our next generation? And can we be the generation that changed things? Can we be the generation that gave food and fibre its voice back? Thank you very much.